Things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucks. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and let's see what Coach Fletch and the rest of the crew has to say. As always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucs Nation? It's time to party, baby.
What is going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Recher podcast. Hope everybody is having a wonderful day, whether you're here in the Tampa Bay area or abroad. We want to start every show like we do, shouting out our guys, our partners at Honest Hammer Custom Builders, LLC. They're licensed, they're insured, they're the bonded general contractor. They're awesome. 813-244-0956. Just scan that QR code right here. Check out my guy Hammer. Give him a call. He'll be the guy that you're calling. Our guy Hammer, Russ, was on the program yesterday talking about all the things that they do. Go to thehonesthammer.com for all the information. We'll talk a little bit more throughout the program every single day about the Honest Hammer Custom Builders. If you're looking for something residential, commercial, looking for a remodel, they're your guys. Honest Hammer Custom Builders, LLC. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram. I am everywhere. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Baby, we are over 1,500 subscribers, man. Thank you so much. Put it out yesterday. We were like 5 away. We were able to get it. My sister Dana says, oh, your nephew Lawson is going to be so proud. He does not like, he wants 5,000. When I got 1,000, he's like, all right, get 5,000. I'm like, damn, Lawson. Took me a while to get 1,000. I got to get 5,000 now. Incremental, slow and steady, easy does it. We had 38 subscribers in November of 2024. Now today, June 24th, 6 months later, we're up to 1,500. Let's keep this ball rolling, man. Let's try to get, 2,000-3,000 by the end of the year. That'd be a nice goal out there. But thank you, everybody. And a big shout out as well to our guy, Devin Garnett, who hit us off with the super chat yesterday, donated some money to the cause. Again, $1, $5, $10, $20. Every single amount helps out. So if you can please donate via the super chat, every little bit helps. I can't do this without you guys. A great show we have for you today on the program. I mean, we're going to start with our guy, Evan Closky, at 12:10. He and I, when we talk about the Rays, man, it is as in-depth as it is going to get. We touch on a little bit of everything. 12:45, George Richards from Florida Hockey Now, our guy covering the Panthers. Nobody covers the Panthers quite like our guy, George Richards. He was there covering the team when they won the Cup. He was also at the parade the other day as well. So we'll talk all things Panthers at 12:45. And then at 1:15, our guy Denard Span is going to join the program. It does not get better than D Span. A couple of things that I want to play for you guys right off the rip, and shout out to Benny and Dave Terry and Dolan. Appreciate you guys. Cannot wait for football either. I want to play the video. I brought this up last week, and when we had Joe Urso on, we had all of our UT folks on. I told you guys about my story. I told you about the decision that I had to make, whether I was going to go or not. And you remember, you were watching here on that Friday, and I had to take a risk. Was I going to go or was I going to stay? Because we know that the game got pushed back. It wasn't Thursday night. It was Friday afternoon. I had to make a decision before the game was over. Was I going to go to North Carolina to cheer on the Tampa Spartans baseball team, or wait until Saturday, or just not go at all? What was I going to do? And I documented the whole thing. I finally put out the video last night. If you have not seen the video, I'm going to play it for you right here. And this is another example. If you have an opportunity in life to take a risk, you got to do it, man. You only live once.
Airport. All right, in the airport, taking a risk, hopping on a flight to Raleigh. We'll see if UT is victorious. If not, I'm going to turn right around and head back to Tampa. If not, and they win, I'll be ready for the championship game at 6 p.m. In life, you got to take risks, right? I was going to book the flight last night, but since the game got rained out and it was played at 1 o'clock today, it was either wait till tomorrow or take the risk. And I'm a risk taker. So here we go at the airport. Go Spartans. UT trailing 2-0 in the 5th. Come on, boys. Dig deep.
If your board has the board word, it must be printed and say board.
Guess I gotta go. 5-1 in the 9th. Came this far. They didn't come this far to go this far. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
All exits. Please take a moment to locate your interception, keeping in mind they might be behind you. They're usually
They can't win because if they get 5 wins.
Congratulations to the Tampa Spartans, our national champions. Here's the award ceremony will start shortly.
Beautiful thing. Any time in life you have an opportunity to do something, take a risk, do it. Do it, man. Life is too short, bro. Get on out there and do it. And those girls, that is my pose, right? Pointing to people. Triple H does that stuff. I've been doing that for years too. And those girls, if you saw me exiting the gate, the girls that were in front of me, they were the ones that were on the plane when I was like, let's go. Because before I took the video, I was way louder and everybody was looking at me. And I was like, oh my God. And the girls they were having a lot of fun. And then I board the plane and I start screaming, oh my God. And they're like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? So when we walked off the plane, they couldn't have walked off the plane fast enough. So yeah, again, if you have an opportunity to do anything in life, be bold, take a chance. And that's why going into this video from yesterday, I'm telling Julian Breezebot, if you have an opportunity to go trade for Connor McDavid, you go out and do it. People want to know, what could a deal look like? We mentioned on the program yesterday. If you missed it, here is what a trade for Connor McDavid to go to the Lightning could look like. If you trade for Connor McDavid, you're going to have to trade either Kucherov or Points. And they're probably going to want a centerman back, so I would think it would be Braden Point. If you're a guy like Julian Breezebot, this is the kind of thing that will define your legacy as the Tampa Bay Lightning general manager. It won't be the Cups. It won't be moving on from Steven Stamkos. It would be that you have the ability to acquire what may be the greatest hockey player of all time. You have an opportunity to do something not many general managers even have the ability to even entertain, to go out and get a guy like Connor McDavid. So what would that package look like? What would a trade for Connor McDavid look like? Because it has to be more than the 12.5 that he's making now. And you're also making this deal understanding that, the cap is going up. He's going to be a free agent. So I think when you look at this deal, Braden Point, he would be the centerpiece of this deal. Obviously, you need a big gem going back. The next piece is Isaac Howard, Hobie Baker winner, highly touted prospect that is not going to sign with the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's going to jump right into that starting lineup for Edmonton. The third guy would be a guy like Jack Finley, more help up the middle, more size, help your middle six. And then I think Eric Chernak, right-handed shot on the blue line, $5.2 million. I know you wonder, because there was such a great relationship with him and Ryan McDonough, but how many years does Ryan McDonough have left? Could a guy like Darren Radish move up to that spot, or Max Crozier move up to that spot to be able to play with Mac? I think there's a possibility there. So, Connor McDavid for Braden Point, Isaac Howard, Eric Chernak, and Jack Finley. What do you guys think of that deal? Is that feasible? Is that something that you think the Lightning would do? Is that something that you think the Edmonton Oilers would do? I don't know, but it's a great conversation to have. So there you have it. My deal yesterday of if you were going to trade for Connor McDavid, and I know some people will say, oh, it's an overpay. It's an overpay. I mean, listen, you're trading for the greatest player on the planet. So you're going to have to pony up. That's just the way it goes. You're not just going to get him for peanuts. And a lot of people, when they look at deals like that, they forget that the other team has to like their side of the deal too. All right, let's bring him in. Our good pal, 10 Tampa Bay, WTSP, Evan Closky, in his customary spot in front of the window. What's going on, brother?
Yep.
How are you?
Yeah, my porch spot. It's the best spot I got. I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm good, man. What do you think of my deal?
Who are they trading for again?
Connor McDavid.
I'm good with it. Yeah, sign me up. I love Pointer. We'll see you back here when we got to put your name in the Hall of Fame and all that stuff.
Right.
Appreciate it, Chernak. Love you, buddy. But if it's for Connor McDavid, I will pack your bags.
The only person that I wouldn't trade in that deal is Vasilevsky, just because that's just the only guy that is off limits. I wouldn't trade multiple guys. Like I wouldn't go, oh yeah, just take Point and Kucherov and Hedman. Like, no, that's not the key. But if the hardest guy to replace on your team is going to be Andrei Vasilevsky, not Kucherov, not Point, not even Victor Hedman. It's Andrei Vasilevsky. He is on that tier of goaltenders where it's every single year you are a Stanley Cup contender because he is between the pipes. We have seen goalies in the past. Even look at Carey Price when the Canadiens went to the final against the Lightning. Like, that team was not very good, but Carey Price willed that team to victory. We saw what Dominik Hasek did in the late 90s with probably the worst teams we've seen ever go to the Stanley Cup final. We talk a lot about football of the Brad Johnson and Trent Dilfer being kind of the worst quarterbacks to ever win a Super Bowl. But if the Buffalo Sabres win one of those cups with Dominik Hasek, like, that's maybe one of the worst sports teams in the top in the Big Four league to ever win because of one guy, because of how good he was. But I think you're with me, man. Like, you have an ability to do something like this. It doesn't come around very often. We saw it with Tom Brady. It's franchise changing. It affects the team so much even after he leaves.
Yeah, and not to mention, like, look, I know that feels like painful to lose guys like Point and Chernak. And again, I'm not out here saying that they should throw them around all willy-nilly either. But when it's Connor McDavid on the other side of it, you start to say scenarios in your head that you weren't originally thinking, and you still are going to have in that deal Cirelli, Hagel, McDavid, Kucherov. Like, the team is still, you got McDonough back there, Hedman, Vasi. Like, you still have a really good core around just a player that you really can't contain. And you have McDavid with Kucherov. Like, good luck having two lines that can handle that. Usually people have the shutdown line and can figure out, we've seen it with the Panthers. They've done an amazing job at limiting your best player. Well, try and do two of the best players in the NHL on one team. Like, it's not that easy. So, yeah, you sign up for that 10 times out of 10 and you deal with the pain. And then, yeah, I would say Vasi for sure. For Lightning fans, look at what the Panthers have done with Bobrovsky. That went from the worst deal out there to, Bob getting the job done at a late age.
Nobody even mentions it anymore.
Yeah. So, the fact is, if you're like, does Vasi still have it or whatnot, you can always look at Bob and just show like how much runway you can really have in this league. And it's not even like Vasi's like bad season. I would say not last year, but the year prior to that matched the downturn of what Bobrovsky was looking like when that contract was at its worst. Right. So I do agree with you. The other, outside of Vasi, maybe Hagel would be the other guy that I would protect only because of price. Like, the talent plus his price tag with the cap going up. If they want Hagel, you're not going to get much else. You can get Isaac Howard and Finley, whatever, but you're not going to get much else because Hagel's contract's going to allow you to do so much down the line. And that's sort of like Tampa Bay's Gustav Forsling contract. It's like such a deal. It's really not fair that you have that caliber of a player at that price.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And if you make that deal, that hypothetical deal, right? Your lines are McDavid, Kucherov, and Gensel. Yuck. Cirelli, Hagel, and Bjorkstrand. Paul Geeky and Gonsalves. And then your fourth line is Yanni Gord, Gergensons, and maybe Dylan Duke. And then your back's pretty much the same. You just put Crozier in for Chernak, and then you still have Andrei Vasilevsky and JoJo. So it's not like you got to get rid of Isaac Howard, in my opinion, in a big deal, not in a 1-for-1, not in a scenery deal, because, and I said this on the show yesterday, Isaac Howard is one of those guys where it's almost like if you buy a DVD from the guy that comes by your local barbershop, you're not going to buy that one DVD of that movie that some people said it was great, some people said it was terrible, but if the guy goes, hey, I'll give you 3 for $10, you'll definitely put that in one of your 3 for $10 because it's worth the risk. Same thing with Isaac. There may be a little bit of a buyer beware from other teams, but if you link them up in another deal and you buddy them up with some of these other players, people go, yeah, it is worth the risk. So the value with him in a combined deal is going to be a lot higher than if it was by himself.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I would rather them hold on to him and just take the second rounder if it doesn't work out than do a 1-for-1 type of deal, because it's not going to net you the return that is really going to be a difference maker for this team. Again, this is a win now team, not so much worried about what they're going to be in 5 years. Don't care about that pick. Isaac Howard has to be flipped for a piece that can help this team. If not this year, then at least next year, when the team still this team still is going to have a window for the next 2 to 3 years at least. And this is probably the last year where money is kind of tight-ish. This is the best money situation they've been in quite some time, which isn't saying much with where they've been. But next year, it's going to really open up for them, and they still have pretty much, outside of like the McDonoughs, who, maybe you get McDonough back on a cheap deal, the same thing you kind of did with Yanni Gord, and you're still able to add, especially with where McDonough is in his career. I'm sure he's going to want to stay in Tampa. I'm sure he would take less. To at least know that if he's taking less, it's going to be invested into the team and to, make this team potentially win another cup. So they have, that's a thing. And when you look at the Connor McDavid trade, maybe that doesn't clear up the money so much this year, but it would allow the Lightning to still add significantly next year, because with Point and with Chernak in your iteration of the deal, you're probably only paying, first off, you still get McDavid on his current contract, which is probably a wash. And then you're going to have to pay him around $20 million, which won't be that much of a problem. You're pretty much just adding $5 million to the cap next year of what you would have been paying for Point and Chernak. So it really is like, again, a no-brainer, because it doesn't even cripple you. You still have all your guys. And luckily for the Bolts, they signed everybody to such long term during the flat cap portion of time, 2, 3, 4 years ago, that these dudes aren't coming up until, the 2030s, 2029, 2030. So they still have a runway here. And we know JBB. Yeah. If he can, he's going to make a big move. He'll push the chips in. He's not scared. So I'm really excited. I do think they have a big move this offseason in them.
Because those 4 guys that I put, McDavid's making 12.5 this year. It's definitely going to go up higher than that. But that deal that I said, the 4 guys going the other way, that's over $15 million. So let's say you do make that move, you still have $3 million to play with for that other winger on the 4th line, right? That's
on top of you got like $5 million still in the bank right now. Now you got to fill out some positions, but you can still spend a good chunk on one player and then fill out whatever you got to do with the rest of the money.
I think you got to make a move to really make a move on Florida. I think you have to. This team is good. Those guys, the majority of them are probably going to come back. I'm excited to see what Julian does in the offseason. Shout out to Craig Kurtzman on his way to KC. Raise up, going to play against our guy Jack Caglione and the Royals. That should be fun. Let's start with, let's start with Wander, because then we'll finish with the good stuff. Wander, the verdict comes out Thursday. I guess, the whole thing in my question about this entire thing was, if they try to just get him on like trafficking, it wasn't that. And now they limited the whole thing down to abuse and only 5 years. I think he's in big trouble. But I want to ask you on the parameters of, I know some people are saying give Junior Caminero all this money.
Mhm.
I don't think the Rays are going to give anybody a long-term deal between now and when the team sells for a multitude of reasons. One being there's still a little bit of a buyer beware when it comes to Wander Franco. And Stu's not going to sign off on any kind of deal like that before he leaves. Why? It doesn't make any sense, right? He's going to take care and do his thing and make sure that the deal, it's not going to sell for 1.7. That's what I said yesterday. There's at least 3 groups that are invested, and the group that I talked to is willing to go up to, if not beyond, $2 billion. So I don't see that this deal is going to be taken care of right away. But I also think that the Rays aren't going to spend big on anybody like a Junior Caminero for both of those reasons. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Junior, look, it does seem like Stu is going to sell. When, to who? I mean, as I'm sure you're mentioning, right? The exclusivity doesn't really rubber stamp this thing quite yet, right? He can always
Right.
pull out of it, reopen it.
Yeah.
Certainly that, certainly this is the group that Major League Baseball probably wants, especially with the lead partner of this deal being so tight with DeSantis, which I'm sure helps with the politics to get a stadium done, so on and so forth. But there is a world where the Rays could certainly pay Junior Caminero, and that money would not kick in for 4-5 years, like significant money. I mean, the way that that's going to be weighted, Junior's still not going to see the majority of his money until that 4 years down the line. So it is still possible, and it could still be something where Stu says, not going to be my problem. Sure, why not?
Mhm.
Let me win some headlines. Let me get let me go out like a champion and waving around and have another press conference and say that I'm doing these things. And so who knows what could be behind that. I don't think it's going to be his problem in the end. So I always am of the belief, I don't think and I'm sure I'm not the one writing the check, so let me say that. But I don't think it would be fair to use the Wander Franco stuff against Junior. I think that would, you have to separate what was and what is. And if you believe that Junior Caminero is the future and you love the makeup of the kid and you believe in the kid, you got to do what's best for business and do right by the team. And if that's paying him his money to lock him into a long-term deal now, about to be 22 years old on July 5, then you do it. And you understand that there is some risk, a la Wander Franco, which we still don't know what's going to happen with that contract. But, hopefully that wouldn't hold them back from making a prudent decision, because here's the thing that is, I think, most tough with Junior Caminero. Long term, he's probably a DH, right? He's probably a first base DH type. I don't think he's a long-term third baseman.
No.
So now you're kind of talking about Rafael Devers territory if he can produce like that. Well, the whole thing around Devers before the trade and after the trade has been, well, he's not really worth that money because the industry doesn't really value hitters like that anymore. Vlad Jr. is kind of that ilk. He just got paid a whole boatload of money, but Toronto has been searching for a big fish for forever. And they really got pushed into a corner to say, hey, if we're going to lock this down, we're going to have to do it. But there's no doubt that Junior down the line, if he's producing like we think he can, is certainly going to be around the $300 million a term. So, if you can do a Wander Franco type of deal, and offer him something that's around $200 million for similar term to Wander, like that would be an amazing deal for the Rays. And Junior Caminero can put that in the bank. I don't think Junior would take that deal because he sees the other deals coming down the chute and understands that he can get paid in the long term. But I don't know. I think that all I can say is that if they are going to do a contract with him, they're going to have to do it at the end of this year. If not, the window is going to close. It closes quickly. So it's not a deal anymore for the player if you keep waiting. At that point, they're one way closer to a fat arbitration number, which makes them feel more comfortable about waiting for free agency.
Yeah, and that's a scary word when it comes to Rays fans out there, because unfortunately, guys price themselves out of the Bay Area, and maybe that's something that changes with some of these ownership groups, right? If now the way that they operate their business, you'd have to think that's going to improve regardless of who they sell to. I just don't see how a team or an owner out there is going to buy a group like this or buy a team like this and then try to operate it the same way Stu did. Right. Yeah. I don't see it being that way. They see the writing on the wall. They have their prerogative. They can do whatever they want. Right. They could operate it the same way. I don't know if you go into, and correct me if you think I'm wrong here. I just don't know if you're a guy at this point. I'm not talking because obviously we could have said the same thing about Stu and Namoli, but I just think if you're a group that is interested in buying the Rays, you're not just buying it because, hey, look at what they were able to do, kind of getting the most juice out of this squeeze as possible. They look at it as almost, hey, we are not really accentuating the strengths that our fan base, that our environment, that our city has, like the Lightning do. Right. I have a feeling that whoever's going to be that next group is going to come in and go, okay, well, that's what you were doing, but we're going to operate like this. We're going to make more money. We're going to put more money into the payroll. We're going to, maybe care a little bit more about what your image is as an entire group. I just see whatever group it is going to be, they are going to operate. I know it's impossible for us to say, but do you agree with that sentiment that it's just they're going to try to do it in a different way, a little bit more Vinnick-esque than what we've seen with Stu?
Yeah, I mean, they have to, right? I don't think – here's the thing. The Rays aren't in, like, a terrible place. Like, when you talk about the on-field product, really, you can come in, keep everybody who's doing their job, right? You don't have to, like, rework the baseball operations department.
Mm-hmm.
All you got to do is add a little bit more money. Hey, Eric, instead of worrying about your max being around 95 million, hey, bump that up. You like a free agent? Let's go. 150. Come to me. I want a big splash. So Eric's never had that green light before. He's had some sort of like nods of like we can raise here and raise there, but look at like Andrew Friedman, right? Andrew Friedman and the Dodgers, they don't spend all willy-nilly, but they spend the right way, and they're able to pull the trigger on deals when they have the value available. So it would allow Eric to do more. But overall, the way that they run the baseball ops is fantastic. As you mentioned, which I think would be the number one thing, is they got to fix the community image. They got to get themselves out there. They got to invest in the people of Tampa Bay. And I think you do that in twofold. One, there's kind of the Vinnick route. Hopefully with this deal, there's a development plan. You're building around the stadium. Something pretty is going to go up that a lot of people are going to go to. But also, there's the other side of the baseball side. You take over the team. The first thing you do is you spend big on a free agent.
Right.
Boom. People say, hey, this is different. And then that kind of automatically starts your tenure in good favor with everybody. So, there is with all that stuff, I really do think that the ownership group needs to come in and fix the off the field stuff with the Rays more so than the on the field. On the field, you pay for a big free agent, and I think like you're good there, honestly, with the public. And then you start chipping away and doing some things that are just like, oh my God, the Rays never did this before, right?
Exactly.
So that's what I think it comes down to.
If Ha-Seong Kim gets called up in the next 2 weeks or so, who's getting sent down? Who do you think?
God, that's a great question. Like these are champagne problems for Eric Neander, but they sent down Meisner finally after hitting about $150 for 2 months, and I kind of like did a deep dive on this before the first injury for Kim, and really the name that kept popping up for me was Curtis Mead, and I don't love that. Like Curtis Mead has been significantly better since April. But he doesn't play as often. He's an infielder. Kim can play second base. He's also a righty. And I just don't know. And right now, Taylor Walls is hitting the cover off the ball like we haven't seen since like May 2022 or 23, whatever that start was. So what are you going to do? You're not going to get rid of Cabby. You're not going to get rid of any of your outfielders. That doesn't make any sense because Kim's an infielder. So when you look at the infielders, Aranda, Diaz, Lau, Caminero, who's going out of this group right now? The Rays don't even have room for Richie Palacios, and he's going right now with right knee soreness. He's probably going to be taking a little bit off of his his rehab. But
Rehab.
I'm wondering if Richie's going to get traded to be given an opportunity elsewhere, because the Rays are so log jammed, and Richie's role on the team is really what Caballero's doing right now, and there's redundancy. So I think there is a sense of like me just might have to go down in the short term while they continue to buy more time. So I don't think there's a better answer than that.
Yeah, and I wonder too, like Chris Morel's the guy that I look at and I go, it's gonna take the Rays to just be like, we screwed this up. That you're gonna have to admit that you had egg on your face and then move on, right? That's the only way. But he's been swinging a little bit better as well.
He's been better recently, and he provides pop. And
he does. It's the balance, right? Do you want to give up on a guy? I don't want to say give up, but if you want to send a guy down in me that you've invested many years into, right? A guy that you've nurtured and you brought him up, he crushed it in spring training. Or do you want to admit that you screwed it? Because there's no options for Morel, right? So you look at that whole thing, and you said champagne problems, but I don't think you get rid of Taylor Walls because of his glove, regardless of how. That's the perfect guy, right? That's the perfect guy to have at the back end of your roster, a switch hitter, a guy that can get bunts down. He can run a little bit, play short, second, and third. You can need him in a pinch. You put him in the outfield, but how many of those guys do you really need, right? Because Caballero, then you start looking at those guys. Maybe there's some redundancy there. So I don't know. It's a good problem to have. I think the team's playing a lot better. Pitching wise, what do you look at when you look at the starting rotation? If you could change anything about the starting rotation, what would you do? Because I know that there's some suggestions out there about certain guys, and some guys that have been struggling, some guys that maybe down in the farm have been pitching better. If you had your druthers, what kind of adjustments would you make?
First off, I mean, tonight's start is a huge one for Taj Bradley. The Rays have given him a lot of leash, and I think his underlying numbers were better than his performance for a little bit, and now I feel like it's becoming a little bit mental with him. I've been arguing for the past couple of starts through. He needs a reset. They really need to just calm him down, take it easy. Let's get back to the basics. But at this point, if Taj has a bad start tonight, I don't know how you can argue that he's not the worst option right now in this starting rotation, that Boyle's not better.
Last real quick. Last 7 games for Taj, 1-3 with a 5.94 ERA, and it's just last 3 starts. The last one against Baltimore, an inning and a third, 6 hits, 6 runs. The start in New York against the Mets, only 4 innings there, 4 hits, no earned runs, but walked 4. And then he gave up 7 earned runs against Miami a couple of weeks ago at home. So yeah, I'm with you, man. I think part of the reason why, and I'll let you finish your thought on Boyle there. I think part of the reason why you haven't seen anything is because they've been playing pretty well outside of his starts. So they kind of just can sweep that under the rug a little bit and let him kind of learn on the job. Because remember, he was thrust into the starting rotation with all the injuries, but he's still only 24 years old. And you have an option like Boyle down there. I'm with you. I don't think a reset would be a terrible thing.
Yeah, so that's my thing is, he when he got hit on the ankle after New York, I said, throw him on the IL.
Right.
Great excuse. They did it with Pepio last year to manage his innings. Pepio got hit in the ankle. He was fine. Needed a little bit of a break. They gave him a breather, and boom, away he went. It's just like you don't have to send him down in like an embarrassing fashion. You can reset him, bring up Boyle. The problem is, and I think what the fear is probably for Eric Neander and company, they bring up Boyle and he throws another great game. How can you send him down? How are we going to wiggle him in? So I think they're really, this was like the Chandler Simpson thing. And I said this before the season, when you bring up Chandler Simpson, fans are going to fall in love with him. You're going to realize he's a difference maker, and it's going to be really hard to send him down. Now they did it, but they reversed course 3 weeks later. So there's only so much you can do in these scenarios once you kind of allow the fans to see everything to really convince people otherwise. And so to me, if you're building the best team, and I think they're just trying to get to the trade deadline so they can evaluate everything and probably move one of their starters to help in another area on this team. But for right now, if we ignore all that, I would say you replace Joe Boyle with Taj Bradley, and you got a better starting rotation right now. Originally, I was of that. I was scared for Shane Baz. I did not love when his slider was not good. He was really ineffective to I think righties, which was a problem. Now he's kind of mixed in a cutter, which is which has been successful in the short term right now. And so maybe he might be able to get back on track with that. But yeah, right now it's I always say this about Eric. The Rays trend on patience and stubbornness,
Mm-hmm.
and you just never know where it's the right call, where patience paid off, and where it's the wrong call of where you were too stubborn to understand what was in front of you. And I think we're kind of getting there with Taj Bradley.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I mean, look at the Buccaneers, right? I think that's what most teams do. I think that's what most successful franchises, that's how they operate, right? They get into a situation where everybody, it's always easy for everybody on the outside to be like, get rid of this guy, but you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You don't know what's going on in that guy's life, right? I understand there's an on-field, on-ice, on-court product, but remember what this guy Todd Bowles did a couple years ago. It took a while for him to pull the trigger on JTS before he switched over to Yaya Diaby. It took him a while before he got rid of Ryan Neal and started replacing them with some other guys. The whole Devin White, KJ Britt thing. You want to be loyal to a fault. You don't want guys to panic and make the snap judgment, and then it's like, oh my God, we gave up on a guy too soon. Before I let you go, I want to ask you. This is kind of off the kind of random topic. Do you watch a lot of sports TV now, as far as opinion based and the debate shows and things like that?
Yeah, I see it from time to time during I get to my desk around like 2:33, and then there's always like I'm waiting for something. I'm waiting for our games or whatever. So it's in the background, white noise kind of stuff.
But it's in the background, right? And this is the thing I wanted to talk about, after I got off with you is, I'm just so turned off nowadays by these opinion pieces of, everybody's got, Emmanuel Acho wants to tell everybody why Kevin Durant is not clutch, or Joy Taylor wants to tell everybody why Caitlin Clark is only popular because of Angel Reese, and Bob Myers and Stephen A. Smith are just yelling at each other. And I find myself, somebody that's involved in this industry, becoming less and less intrigued, or even I couldn't care less what these people have to say. Just give me the games. That's all I really care about. And when things like that come on, if I want people yelling back and forth and drama, that's why I watch WWE, because I know that's what it's about, right? I know that's what it's about. Like this stuff where people are just coming up with hot takes. And this is why I think you and I get along really well. When you get up to the board and you and David do what you guys do, like, it's not, hey, hot take central. It's, hey, let's take a deeper dive. Let's be educational and informative.
Yeah.
So when I come up with the Connor McDavid thing, I'm not just speaking out of my ass. Like, I actually did my homework and try to do some thorough research on this. Do you think that that's changed over the years as a person that's, grown up loving sports?
Yeah, for sure. My number one complaint about all this stuff is how so many people in the national media and these opinion shows have dumbed down the product. And it's really just trying to poke the bear at people, right? Like, I mean, you just brought up two things. Those are negative angles. Like, why do I have to hear about, like, Stephen A. Smith after the Thunder won the title? Why do I have to hear about, oh, well, they were a good team, but they weren't a great team, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, they weren't one of the best of all time. Who cares?
Yeah, like who gives a crap? Like, they won the title. Why do we have to be negative? Why do we have to be and I mean, there's difference between, like, people, I think, claim that I'm negative a lot of the times. I'm critical. I analyze.
Yeah.
Maybe I overanalyze, and I can accept that complaint about me. But the fact is, I'm not speaking out of my ass. I'm speaking from, hey, I'm looking, like, to start the year, for example, Zach Littell, after his first couple starts, was doing really well. And I said, I'm really concerned about Zach Littell. I'm looking at his splits against lefties. I'm looking at his peripherals. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at that.
Right.
And he kept shoving it. And then at some point, it's like, well, guess I'm wrong. Like, I don't know. I don't know how he's doing it, but he's doing it. But in the end, it's not like I'm saying, oh, don't believe this guy. He's not as good. This is what I'm seeing. This is why I'm saying it. This is why I have this opinion. It's not just like, oh, hey guys, let's rally around a room. We don't have much to talk about. Hey, let's talk about Dak's legacy on June 14th. It's like, it's lazy TV. It's low hanging fruit. It's how can I piss you off? And to me, that's not the world that I live. I always say this, like, it's the industry I'm in. But if that's how I'm going to make money, I'm not going to be in this for the money. Right. I can't do it. So I think, like, you, me, and there's tons of people out there who do this the right way. There are a bunch of people who are actually, I guess maybe we call them influencers now, or people who aggregate their own social, their own content, like yourself, who who do it kind of the right way, and people fall in line with that. It's just a lot of networks just try to, they go for the low hanging fruit to make money. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't like it, and for me, I want you to educate fans why this is your take, and stop just pummeling people for no reason.
Right.
Like I don't get that. I mean, I do, because saying like, "Hey, good job. This is a good team," doesn't make money. But I think it really just dumbs down the product. And I think viewers, anybody who's listening, like, you're so much smarter than what these execs, what these people who make these opinions, you're so much smarter than what they think. Like, they think like we got to dumb down this product because the audience isn't smart enough. It's like, no. The audience is actually much smarter than you think, and they will gravitate towards it if you do it the right way. That's kind of like, for me personally, someone who I really like, who's on a national stage, Dan Orlovsky, right? Sometimes he kind of gets thrown into the takey world, but when he's breaking down this film, when he's doing the 3D stuff, like, I can't tell you how hard it is to communicate and do all that stuff in television and not stumble or like, he is so smooth with it. But I always walk away from his segments when he's doing that stuff feeling educated about, oh man, like, this, how this defense, how he looked at this play and all that stuff. Like, that's the stuff that I like. And typically, if enough people did that, I think we would all see the game a much better way, whether that's hockey, baseball, basketball, whatever sport you want to throw out there, football. So yeah, I mean, you and I are on the same page with that, and it definitely it's a sad state of affairs, to be honest, but it's just the way that it's gone.
It's like the 5 o'clock news, right? Let's start with the trauma. Let's start with the killings,
the death and despair.
The death and despair, which is crazy, and that's why I think the class of Scott Van Pelt. I mean, he goes about it in his own way. Late night. I mean, he's the only guy that I'll definitely won't turn it off, right? Because it's going to be the best thing I saw today, right? That's his thing, and he's trying to promote the good things in sports, and that's the reason why we got in there in the first place.
And he's honest, right? It's not like all takes are like, hey, like, this team does so well and this team does so well. No, he's critical of people sometimes. But it's when it's topical, when it comes up,
right,
and when there's stuff behind it, and when he does those, one big take or whatever it's called, he devotes time to it to explain it. It's not just let's fling crap at a wall and ad lib and say a bunch of things that, like, I don't need to hear Stephen A. Smith talk about baseball. I'm sorry, you don't know baseball. You don't spend any time on baseball. You're not a baseball guy. So when you give me takes on baseball, I don't give a crap. Like, I don't like. It's just like, it'd be like me giving, like, I covered the San Antonio Spurs when I was there, so I certainly know basketball, but like right now I'm so ingrained in the other three sports that basketball is the last take that I really should be out there in the forefront making. So it's just, you got to, a lot of times you have to know what your strengths are. And I just feel like a lot of people, they get in this industry because, like, Stephen A. Smith was so tapped into basketball, had such great takes there, and had such a feel for it. And then you start to try to splinter him off into different arenas, and that's when the bullshit starts to fly.
Yeah, you're right. Because I don't want to hear what he has to say about boxing or MMA. No, I don't want to hear anything. You're mispronouncing people's names. Like, I don't want to hear anything like that.
Exactly.
Evan Closky, 10 Tampa Bay, E Closky WTSP. Brother, we could do 5 hours every time you come on.
Every time.
I appreciate you, my brother. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. Have a good one.
Thanks, buddy. The great Evan Closky. He's the man. One of my best pals in the industry. And he's right, man. And to be completely honest with you guys, I've been thinking about, somebody asked me the other day, would you ever get back into radio? My first reaction is no. My first reaction is no. I wouldn't say never, right? But man, just think about it. Like, just think about all the things that we've talked about in the last month on this show, right? UT winning, all the great things with USF, the Lightning, NHL stuff, basketball, just the Tampa Bay Sun, right? Rowdies, all the local stuff, Pasco Hernando, like so many different things that have been great content. We've gotten great feedback. Social media numbers, really good. And yeah, NFL stories, right? But the fact for sports radio, you got to start every freaking hour of your show with something NFL. Like, it's redundant to me. If it's football season, yes, of course. if there's big stories, like if we're talking about the NFL draft, we're talking about the start of free agency, big signings, trades, of course, no doubt about it. Right? But just to talk about NFL, just for the sake of NFL, because it's the most popular sport, like I don't want to do that. Like that's just, I don't see any purpose to that. And if that, I mean, listen, I understand it's the most popular sport. People maybe can relate to it the most, but it's like, I don't, if that's the case, I don't want to be a part of that. That's not my thing. I think for somebody that cracks a mic and you want to fancy yourself as somebody that talks about all the sports, I think you should be well versed in all of them and do your freaking homework instead of just being like, hey, you know what? It's June 24th. Let's give our predictions on the schedule. Let's go and, let's do a Mount Rushmore conversation. Like, Jesus Christmas. With all the stuff that's going on, Stanley Cup final, NBA finals, all the different things going on, we're going to talk about Mount Rushmore and NFL conversations that you could have at any time of the year. And if your response to that is, well, NFL's king, there's always a place for that. Is there? I'd rather talk about pertinent topics, things that are going on right now. Because you can get information anywhere on anything. If you want just NFL talk, go to an NFL network, go listen to SiriusXM and listen to just NFL stuff. But if you're talking about all sports, I'd rather talk about the things that are pertinent and important right now. I don't know. It is the way it is. Ready for you, buddy. All right, our buddy George Richards is going to join us from Florida Hockey now. This guy, all over it. The authority. When it comes to the Florida Panthers. That's the thing. People were looking at all these different things with Edmonton and the Lightning. Listen, nobody else is putting out a trade possibility. You know, they just brought it up on Spit and Chicklets about Connor McDavid going to the Lightning, but who else is coming up with deals? And it's hypothetical, man. We're just having fun with it. Everybody gets so bent out of shape. Like, oh my God, they will never do that. What are you smoking? Blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not a teenager anymore. Radio's having some of there you go. Hammer. Radio's having some of the same effects as the TV because they cover the same stuff. That's why you're different. Keep doing you. Appreciate you, Hammer. Benny. Jay Recher, Mount Rushmore of DAE host. I don't think I'm on there, buddy. I was there for 10 years. I was only a host for less than a handful. Who is the Mount Rushmore of WDAE hosts? It's got to be Chris Thomas, the big dog, running Ian. I mean, it's a good question. It really is a good question to have. All right, let's bring him in. Fresh off of partying with the Kachucks and the Bennetts and everybody out there, FloridaHockeyNow.com. Our guy, George Richards. Are you okay? Or is the hangover done? How are you, brother?
I'm good. What's going on? How you doing?
Oh, man, it's been a pleasure reading your stuff, following your stuff. What an incredible run, man. I mean, I obviously did it a couple years ago with the Lightning, but, things like this, it doesn't get old, does it?
No, those, being out there in 95 degree heat on Fort Lauderdale Beach, that's what I'm recovering from. It's been mostly work, the past week, and feels like a month. I mean, it was just a week ago tonight that the Panthers beat Edmonton in Game 6, and I'm telling you, it feels like it was a month ago. It really does. And I can't imagine what the Panthers are. I mean, because they've gone nonstop. I mean, nonstop.
And it's just so wild, too, because you think about it, it just ended, right? And we saw you with the Lightning Panthers. That seems like it was 6 months ago, the first round of the playoffs.
I tweeted that out. They at the parade, they were showing the highlights of the playoffs, and it started, Game 1 in Tampa. And if you remember the storyline going into that, it was, Florida really wasn't playing that well. I mean, everybody in the world was picking Tampa. Mm-hmm. And you remember, we were in the press box, and it was like a switch had been flipped. And right. I remember asking Paul Maurice after Game 1 in Tampa, they looked like a completely different team. And yes, you are right. I think I tweeted that out.
Mhm.
Game 1 in Tampa. That feels like 6 months ago.
Yeah, it's pretty wild too because we didn't know what Matthew Tkachuk's status was going to be like either.
Correct.
We didn't know if he was going to be healthy, and I remember staying for the Panthers morning PA just to get a look at him. And for all of our Lightning fans that tune in here, Matthew Tkachuk, it's just the injury that he had to deal with and just what he was able to do on the ice, off the ice. He has been such, you trade Huberdeau, who had some fantastic years for the Panthers, but you want to talk about franchise altering moves. Just talk about his impact since he stepped foot there in South Florida and what he was able to do this postseason for the club.
Yeah, he's been a completely a difference maker for the Florida Panthers. I think a lot of people were very upset that night when the trade news came down. It was like a Friday night. It was like 11:30 on a Friday that Florida had traded Mackenzie Weegar and Jonathan Huberdeau, who, if you remember, had like 120 points or whatever that year. But listen, I think Jonathan Huberdeau had kind of had Bill Zito painted into a little bit of a corner. I mean, he was going to get, he wanted the 8-year max, $11 million, $12 million based on what he had done, and it's deserved. He got it in Calgary. But I don't think Florida wanted to give him that kind of a deal. And then when Matthew Tkachuk comes on the scene, Bill Zito, sent Calgary a package they could not say no to. And I don't think Carolina or St. Louis understood how much Florida needed Matthew Tkachuk. And he's just been, between, Sasha Barkov, quiet, unassuming guy. He's the captain of this team and everybody follows him. But, then he's got his new sidekick. It used to be Huberdeau. Now it's, Matthew Tkachuk. they play off each other so well. I mean, you saw at the parade. I don't know if you saw, but Sasha was wearing a Matthew Tkachuk T-shirt. Him smoking a cigar in the locker room. Matthew Tkachuk's been a game changer here in South Florida. He came down here. First thing he said was, we were talking about the. Florida just gotten swept by Tampa Bay, as you remember. We asked him about the Battle of Alberta, then coming now to the Sunshine State battle, whatever we're calling it. And he was like, "Yeah, I hate Edmonton, but now I guess I hate Tampa." He's just a quote machine and very gregarious guy, a lot of fun to be around, and obviously a real good hockey player. He's got the injury thing. We don't know when we're going to see him again, but he's been a big difference here in South Florida.
Yeah, and he's endeared himself to a lot of Americans around the country because of what he was able to do in the Four Nations, and it's exciting to know, like, you root against this guy in the regular season, in the playoffs, but it's nice that he's going to be donning the red, white, and blue for many years. We couldn't claim any of those guys here in the States. George, I said this very early on, right after the trade deadline. I said, this move for Marchand, bringing Marchand and Seth Jones that's either going to put them over the top again, or it's going to blow up in their face. Because I remember watching Marchand when he was with Boston this year, and I go, that he's on his last legs. It does not look like the same guy. The foot speed was the biggest thing with me. He just couldn't keep up, and he had the guile. He had he's such a slick hockey player, and he was so smart. And then he just found a little bit of the fountain of youth. They put him on that third line, which was incredible. Seth Jones filling in for Ekblad when he was out. I mean, my goodness, those guys were fantastic. I mean, just talk about those two acquisitions and, especially Marshy, what he was able to do, turning back the clock. And, if it wasn't Bennett, I mean, Marchand was probably one of the best players in all of the playoffs there.
Yeah, he finished second, and they got Conn Smythe voting by the writers and broadcasters. Because listen, if Matthew Tkachuk doesn't get hurt at Four Nations, Florida doesn't have the cap space to make those moves. Seth Jones comes here from Chicago with the Blackhawks, holding back $2.5 million, retaining $2.5 million over the next 5 years. That's big. So you're
George, did you guys hear a lot of the BS about the LTIR thing? Oh, they're circumnavigating that because
there's a little bit.
We heard that with Kucherov here, and I was at skate one day early, and I watched Kucherov out there. He didn't have a helmet on, and he was skating, and he was grimacing the whole time. And I couldn't take a video because I was there early, but I'm just like, all those people, and I'm not saying it never happens, but like all those people that were like, oh, Kucherov is fine. I watched him. He looked like shit. And this was like a week or two before the regular season was over. So I just wasn't sure if you heard that kind of stuff too.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, there was all kinds of that. And then people were like, well, And then, what if Aaron Ekblad gets suspended before the trade deadline instead of after? Because Florida would have had $18 million. You know what I mean?
Right.
So anyway, yeah, I mean, a little bit of that. But, I mean, listen, they're able to bring in Seth Jones, and he obviously, I mean, this guy, we know how good he was in Columbus. That's why, Chicago made the move to bring him, and it wasn't his fault that the team just went straight downhill. That's not what he signed on for. That's not what he agreed to. He thought that, Chicago was going to be a contender in the West. And if you remember that 2021 draft, when that trade was made, Chicago was the talk of the draft. It was like Chicago's back. Chicago, they're on track. And it just fell apart. You had the sexual scandal thing pop up, and it just went down. So anyway, so he's unhappy, and it just happens to coincide with Florida having Matthew Tkachuk money. So Florida's got him, and like you said, Marchand. There were fans here in Florida that when he finally came back, because remember he was injured when Florida got him, so he didn't play for a couple weeks. When people were like, we think that this guy is a plant. He's a plant from Boston to sabotage the Panthers, because it really, I mean, as fun as he was in the room, and you could see him fitting in, you could see the way he was interacting with the other players, but it just wasn't working on the ice because Paul Maurice, in his infinite wisdom, was moving things around. He was trying to find things, and everybody's like, well, it's definitely going to be, when the playoffs start, Tkachuk, Bennett, and Marchand, the rat line for sure. I think they played together once, and it was in Tampa. I think they got together one time, but once, you're right, once they found Eetu Luostarinen and then Anton Lundell, that line, nobody had an answer for it. You could see, we asked John Cooper about it. They didn't have an answer. Toronto didn't have an answer. Carolina didn't have an answer for that. Nobody had an answer for that line. They were all over the ice. Give a lot of credit to Anton Lundell and Eetu Luostarinen, but how about Brad Marchand just would always find those guys, and they just played so well together. It looked like they'd been together for years, and it had only been weeks.
It's funny because when you look back at the Panthers and the Lightning, you're going to talk about Barkov and Reinhart. You're going to talk about Stammer and Cooch. You'll talk about Ekblad. You'll talk about Hedman, Bobrovsky, Vasilevsky. But the true key to both of their back-to-back wins was the third line. Gord, Goodrow, and Coleman were the first line over the boards every single time. And it was similar because they tried to keep those guys apart when they brought them in. Then eventually it was like, all right, we got to put these three guys together. And it was just unstoppable because as well as I do, a lot of times the top six guys, they cancel each other out. Who's got that third line? And to see how good those guys played against the Lightning and then all the way through, it was just amazing. So now the next step, George, is who's staying, who's coming back. I mean, I know Bennett, who doesn't say much. He wants to come back. Marchand, what do we know about Ekblad? Because I feel like that is the number right there where he could probably get more going somewhere else. We know the advantages of the no state income tax. When you're looking at your big UFAs, who do you think is coming back? Who do you think could be playing somewhere else next season?
I would say for sure Bennett and Marchand are coming back. Which I never, you asked me that 3 weeks ago. I was like, no. Marchand's just a rental. He's just a rental. He's going to go to, let's say, Utah. He's going to get his 3 or 4 years. He's going to get his $5 million,
Right.
Florida's going to give him something that's competitive, whether that he lasts the length of that contract or not, doesn't matter. As long as they keep that AAV low,
right.
You worry about tomorrow. They just need to get him under the cap for next year because, yes, you're trying to sign Aaron Ekblad. So you've got, like I said a couple weeks ago, 7.5 probably for Bennett. That allows 6.5 for Ekblad. We don't know what's going on with the Tkachuk if he goes back on LTIR. He says it's 50-50. He needs surgery, but he's waiting. He's waiting as the summer goes along. He doesn't want to have surgery before he has his cup day, and all that kind of stuff. So Florida may have a little more cap room to play with than we think right now. They're $19 million under the cap, but Aaron Ekblad is the X factor right now. How much would Aaron Ekblad get on the open market? He's got a 7.5 AAV right now. I would think he gets 8.5, 9 in like a Detroit or something, right? I mean, does he want? I don't know. I don't know. But that's a lot of money to say no to. So listen, Bill Zito said he thinks that they can sign all three, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can we doubt Bill Zito at this point? I mean, really? I mean, if Bill Zito says it, I mean, all right, let's just wait and see how it works out. Like, they're smarter minds than I don't know what they've got coming. They may use, you're allowed to be 10% over the cap during the summer. They may use all of that. I mean, so, it may not make sense to my simple mind, but they've got, geniuses working in that front office who have everything down to the penny worked out. So we'll see.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And bringing those guys back, I remember watching Steve Yzerman up in the press box in that first round, and he had his papers all over the place. He looked like a college senior trying to get his final thesis ready. And I'm like, what is he doing up here with his highlighters? And I thought Sam Bennett was possibly the guy that he was looking at, but it could be Aaron Ekblad. I mean, you're looking at, and we saw it with the Lightning, and we've seen it with the great teams that have won multiple cups over the years. You try to poach some of those guys that have that it factor, that guy that has that, all right, this is what he's been able to do in the postseason. Sometimes it doesn't work, right? Sometimes you overpay for guys like that. I know the Rangers gave Barclay Goodrow all that money, and then they stuck him on the fourth line, and then you end up trading him to San Jose. So I always feel like it's better to use your money to retain your guys rather than going out and trying to sign maybe a guy that's an unknown, quantity when it comes to your team. Yeah, he does great for a Stanley Cup winning team, but how is that going to translate to your team? Somebody just brought this up, the Bobrovsky deal. I mean, what was that like? Starting with the day they got, because I was there at the draft when they picked Spencer Knight, and I go,
right.
Oh man, like this whole thing is gonna be crazy. And now it's like, hey, nobody even brings it up anymore. It's probably one of the wilder stories when it comes to contracts in NHL history, because everybody's been waiting to just write Bobrovsky off. Hey, he's just kind of a flash in the pan, just a random Vezina, blah, blah. Now the guy's got 2 cups, and you're looking at, is he a Hall of Famer? Like now the deal looks like he's a Hall of Famer, right? That's what I'm saying. Like he's definitely a guy that you look at now. It's like it's easily one of the best goalies in the league, and he's not showing any signs of slowing down.
I think after he won the cup, like he was a Hall of Famer before Florida won, right? You win the Vezina twice, the number of wins he's got. Yeah. Florida wins the cup last year. That makes him a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Right.
And now it's not even a question. He's won it twice. He was a big reason why Florida made it. I mean, into 23, the big reason why Florida made it to the final was Sergei Bobrovsky. Right. So yeah, we were at that draft, right? We're in Vancouver, and I asked Dale Talon, because this was before free agency, just like it usually is. I'm like, so what? No Bobrovsky now? Oh, what are you talking about? I'm like, you just drafted a goalie 13th overall, and now you're going to sign Sergei Bobrovsky for $70 million with a oh no, yeah. Spencer Knight 5 years away. I'm like, is he 5 years away? I mean, we're thinking 3, and it turns out it was like 1, because he was in the 2021 playoffs. It was 2 years later. He's made, because
Recher was playing good at that time too.
Yeah, and then he had Driggs. Yeah. So it was wild, but yeah, like you said, that contract, that albatross of a contract that everybody brought in for good reason, man. Come on, I talk to Bob all the time, and I'm like, man, he doesn't want to talk about those days because those were bad days. Yeah, the confidence level wasn't there. The defense in front of him wasn't there. And it was just like he was getting – remember that first series, that COVID series?
Yeah.
They yanked him, and those final 2 games of the Tampa series, he wasn't even dressed. Yeah. The Panthers didn't even want – they were like, yeah, just go to the press box, because you had Knight and Driggs. So and then it continued that next year where it was like, oh, no, Bob's playing pretty good. And then he'd have a stretch where it was like, $10 million, and people are like, how do you buy this thing out? You can't buy it out until after year 5. That's the way the contract was written. Remember, it was a 7-year deal that was really looked at that you could do something after 5. You could buy it out a little bit. They paid a lot of it up front, but again, nobody talks about it. Nobody's talked about it in a couple, ever since the 23 playoffs. Nobody has talked about Sergei Bobrovsky's contract in a negative way.
Yeah, it's amazing too, because people talk about, well, what if Russia had a Olympic team, blah blah blah. It would be Vasilevsky and Shesterkin and Sorokin, and I go, wait a second, Bob might be at the top of the list. It's him and Vazzy, and then Shesterkin and Sorokin. And let's not
I
forget
think you
about
throw Bob in there. Yeah. Let's say Russia's got a team that in next. It's Bob. Bob's on that team with Vazzy.
No doubt about it, man.
You want that experience in those kind of games. Yeah, and I think it would be it's a theoretical slap in the face if he wasn't there. Just not happening. But
yeah, no doubt. What did you see before I let you go? What did you see from Edmonton in this series that was different, similar, and what's your thoughts on Connor McDavid? Obviously, that's something that I just we spoke about yesterday on the show because of the guy on Spit and Chiclet saying that Connor McDavid, Tampa. I put a package together of Point, Howard, who's not signing here anyway, Chernak, and Jack Finley, because you like to play the hypotheticals. If you have an opportunity to get the best player in the world, you got to try to do it. But what did you see, and what are your thoughts on a possible Connor McDavid trade out of Edmonton?
I don't think Edmonton ever trades him. They already did that once with Gretzky, and those were different circumstances. I think with McDavid, you're going to be able to pay him what he wants. He's the captain of that team. Those guys do have loyalty. I mean, it's like everybody keeps talking about Brady Tkachuk coming to Florida. No, he knows what he means to Ottawa. He's not leaving Ottawa. And I think the same thing with McDavid. I don't think he's going to Toronto, and I certainly don't think Edmonton's going to trade him unless he says I am not coming back. And I don't see that happening. That's the only way this happens is if he says, guys, you might as well get what you can for me because I'm not. But as long as he doesn't say that, you've got to keep the faith that you can sign him. The salary cap's going up next year. You're already paying what's Draisaitl making? 13, 14?
Yeah, and he said David's got 12 and a half. Yeah.
So you're thinking 15 for David. But the money's there. As for what we saw, and yes, if you can trade for him, Tampa Bay, go get it. I think Bill Zito will be on the phone too. Every GM will be on the phone.
Right.
I look. This year was just they were polar opposite series. Last year, Florida takes a 3-0 series lead, but in 2 of those games, Edmonton was the better team, and Edmonton probably could have been up 2-1 going into Game 4. Instead, it's 3-0. In this series, Florida lost games it shouldn't have. This series, honestly, after Game 3 wasn't close. It wasn't close. Florida dominated them. Florida just kicked the living snot out of them. I mean, they just did. And it would they set an NHL record for most minutes led in a finals. And we thought after Game 2, coming back to Sunrise, the old ESPN instant classic. This is going to be the greatest Stanley Cup final of all time. And then we get a 5-1 Game 6, and it was just, the Panthers are all celebrating on the ice with 8 seconds left. And, so it was like, it was just one of those things. And you feel for Edmonton because they put so much into this and they had such a great run. Who would have thought, they're down 0-2 in Los Angeles, and it looks like the Kings finally have their number. The Kings have finally figured them out, and they win the next 4, and then they dominate Vegas. And then Dallas had one good period. Yeah, Dallas was a darn good. I mean, how good were the Dallas Stars?
Amazing.
They were the team I thought was going to be in the final. We were finally going to have the Pete DeBoer, Paul Maurice meet down. But so Edmonton, a really, really, really good team. But Florida was just a machine, and the way they treated things, the way they treated the whole playoffs, you wouldn't have known. They're playing in Game 7 against Toronto, and it's like, what? We're going to Dairy Queen. Who cares? And Marchand was there. Everybody in Toronto was like, how are you guys so calm in such a big game? And he's like, dude, it's Game 7 of the second round. It's really not that big of a game. Right. Like, all these people in Toronto are like, what are you talking about? This is gigantic. Man, not to these guys. They didn't. It's like Tampa. Tampa's like, yeah, we're fine.
Yeah, we'll be fine. Real quick, last one. Where does Mitch Marner go? Where do you think?
Ooh, that's a doozy. Well, it depends if some of the reports are out there that and there's conflicting reports if he would take a 2-year, 3-year deal. I don't know. I think that canvas is wide open. There's a lot of teams that have the cap space to do it. There's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be able to pay him. So I don't know. I mean, is it going to be a team that's a contender right now? I don't think those teams have that kind of money. What's he like? He's looking at $13-14 million. So who can pay that? Utah? I mean, Colorado can't pay that. Dallas can't pay that, of course. So I have no idea where he's going to land. Maybe Carolina. Carolina's got a little bit of cash, and maybe Carolina makes that splash. Since they lost Ranton, I don't know, but I don't think he fits Carolina's game. I mean, does he?
No.
Did you see him?
He probably does. A guy that does really good in the regular season and doesn't do well in the postseason. Maybe.
I mean, if he takes a short-term deal and waits for the cap explosion, maybe that's the kind of incentive he needs to really get things in gear and really cash in. But he's so immensely talented, and
he is.
The Panthers have played them 2 of the last 3 years, and you're just sitting there watching him and like, why isn't he scoring? Florida, covered him like a blank. When Florida is on you, you're good, because they were all over him. They were all over McDavid. They were all over Draisaitl, and Cooch as well. I mean, you saw this year what Florida did to Cooch last year as well. They just were all over him, and hard to come out from that.
Unbelievable defense. I mean, 15 straight playoff games without a goal for Nikita Kucherov, and Paul Maurice and the Panthers are a big reason why. FloridaHockeyNow.com, George Richards, the coffee connoisseur down there at Amerant Bank Arena. He is the man. You cannot get a cup of coffee in that arena in the press box without making sure it's the good stuff from George's machine. George, you are the best. I appreciate it. Go get some rest, man, and enjoy the summer. I'll see you in the fall, my friend. Thank you.
All right, Jay. Good seeing you. We'll see you. We got 8 preseason games against Florida and Tampa, right? And maybe 9 this year. I don't know.
Who knows? There'll be more. It's between the Panthers, the Predators, and the Lightning. They should just play each other 3 or 4 times and just say the screw with everything.
Southeast forever, baby. The Southeast Division's back.
You got it, pal. Thanks, George.
See you at Wesley Chapel.
Yes, sir. All right. Good stuff. George Richards all over it, man. Listen, we say this about Eric Erlinson. There's nobody else that I would talk Lightning hockey with. The connoisseur of the Bolts. George is that guy for the Panthers. In, out, up, and down. He knows this team like the back of his hand. And my goodness, like you watch the Panthers and what they've done the last couple of years, and it's hard not to compare them to the Lightning because they did it the right way. Great coaches. Great goaltenders, great Russian goaltenders. Defensively, they're tough to play against. I had this conversation with J.J. Moser earlier on this year, and it just showed a little bit of the lack of experience of him being in the rigors of the postseason. I said, what sets this team apart? And he said, the skill. And that made me kind of step back, and I go, it's not the most skilled team that wins in the postseason. It's not. You need to be tough to play against. That's the number one thing that I've seen over the years. And then my 10 years to almost 11 years covering sports here in the Tampa Bay area. The best hockey teams that win are the toughest teams to play against. Look no further than the Florida Panthers and our Tampa Bay Lightning. Jeff Taylor. We were asking about the Mount Rushmore of WDAE hosts. Did you say I was only there for 10 years? Yes, I was only there for 10 years. And thank you, Benny. But I wasn't a host for 10 years. So I was a host with Ron for about 6 months. And then I was a producer for Ron and Ian. And then when Ron left, it was me and Ian for 2 years? And then Zach and I for about 2 years. So 4 years or so. I'm not on that list. I'm not on the Mount Rushmore. I wasn't there long enough. I mean, the contenders to me, when you talk about the Mount Rushmore for WDA hosts, Chris Thomas and the Big Dog, Ron and Ian, Ronnie and T-Kraz. I mean, Pat and Aaron, they've been together for a while. I mean, they have to be in the conversation. So, maybe they'll do it one day. Again, WDA is still relatively young. There hasn't been that much turnover when it comes to the hosts. I don't think anybody else that I haven't mentioned would be in consideration. But I enjoyed my time there, and I still have a lot of love for everybody that's over there right now. It was a great time. But going back to the conversation we had about that, I just don't know if that is necessarily something that really piques my interest as far as how I want to cover sports. I don't want to be a hot take guy. I don't want to just focus on football all the time out of season. I just think there's a lot to get into. That conversation with George Richards is fantastic. Who else is talking to the Florida Panthers beat guy right now? Like that's interesting shit. And it ties back to our Tampa Bay Lightning because we were there and he was here. Like, it was really, really great stuff. Oh man, Jess Dumick is leaving. We got to have her on the show. We got to have her on. I got to get you on the show. If you don't know Jess Dumick, she's done such a great job. Not related to the big dog, Steve Dumick, but she is one of the main PA people she was the Sun. She did a lot of USF stuff. She's incredible. So we definitely got to get her on the show. It looks like she's moving. So that stinks. What doesn't stink is our next guest. One of my favorite people on planet Earth. Let's bring him in right now. It's the man, Denard Span. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
I'm good. I'm chilling.
You see
at home, man, just hanging out.
Do you see your logo on the bottom there?
I love it. That's it. Put some respect on my name.
The Hall of Pretty Goods, Denard Span. Listen, those guys have been just crushing it on Twitter and on social media, and it's all love. Like, I know when I first got out, I was like, man, they're trying to throw shade. They're not trying to throw shade. They're really trying to big people up that aren't going to get Hall of Fame consideration, and they do their homework. And I just love, because you're not the biggest social media person, and you were all about this. Bro, unbelievable. Congratulations, buddy. You had a fantastic career.
I appreciate that, man. And you know what? At first, I was similar to you. You know, they were posting and tagging me and stuff. It started, I don't know, maybe a year ago, 6 months ago. Mm-hmm. And at first, I was like, all right, who are these guys? You know what I mean? Like, are you trying to, throw shade? Are you trying to, be sarcastic with me? And it is a little bit, some sarcasm with in this thing. Yeah. But it's all, like you said, it's all in good fun. And I love what they're doing. They're giving flowers to, like you said, guys that were really good players, but not Hall of Fame caliber type of players. So, yeah, it was just a cool little 2-3 days. Got a lot of love from them and a bunch of fans, and so it's been a cool little run tagging with those.
I love that, man. We were talking about you the other day because I'm back in the coaching scene again. I was up in South Carolina, went to Clemson to coach a game. I'm with our buddies Pat Russo and the Hit Factory group, and we were talking about some of the best players in Tampa Catholic history, and you were certainly in that conversation. What do you remember about playing?
Time out. Tampa Catholic history?
Yeah.
What about Tampa Bay history?
Oh, because we were talking about high school.
Oh, okay. I got to get that straight.
Nah, you're in there.
Now.
So what? No, because what I want to do, here's my idea, because I want to see if you like this. So we have these things where it's like top 10 in history, top 10. I would like to do something where I go around and ask, because you got to ask the OGs, right? You can't just ask the people that have been around in the last 20 years. Because Vince Scagno was in the car with us too, and he goes, bro, we got to talk about the guys from the 70s, right? There was Tampa Catholic got some OGs in there. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? You can't just ask people that are younger than the age of 50. You got to go and you got to ask Coach Pete Mulry. Like, you got to be like, hey, Coach, give me some guys that maybe people have forgotten about. And I was like, and I said, what if I made a top 10 list for Tampa Catholic, Jesuit, Hillsborough, Jefferson, stuff like that? And we were just kind of throwing names against the wall. And that's how the conversation started. And I go, man, I got to do that. But I got to ask Pop Cuesta. You know what I mean? Like,
you got to do your homework. You got to do your
exactly. Because you're not trying to disrespect the earlier generations. So what I was saying, when you were playing ball in the summers in your teenage years, what was that like for you as you were getting ready to really like, hey, I'm about to really start kicking it into high gear and possibly be a collegiate athlete or a pro ball player?
Well, I played multiple sports. I'm trying to think, maybe 1 or 2 summers I did Legion ball for baseball. But aside from that, during the summers, it was like I was gearing up for football season coming up in the fall. So we were doing 2-a-days, in the gym, working out. More of my time, like I said, just focused towards that. But the summertime was essentially like an off season for a professional ball player.
Right.
Time where you're able to close the gap and get better, get stronger, get faster. That was how I spent the majority of my summers was working and trying to perfect my game and get a little bit better.
your kids are about to in the next couple of years really start kicking it into high gear and becoming, they're already little men, but they're about to really, it's so great to see them
Yeah.
grow. How, I know it's still early, but how will you approach that being a dad as far as them playing multiple sports, and what advice would you give to other people? Because I tell people all the time, if I grew up in Tampa, I don't know if I would have played baseball in high school, because me, after going hard in the paint all summer, it was like, hockey season now, boys. As soon as those leaves started turning, I was putting the pads on. I'm ready to hit somebody. That was my thing.
Yeah.
Right. So it was always good for me. And I feel like when I really got better at hockey, I even got better in baseball, because there was a toughness aspect to it. There was a physicality where it was like, there's nothing on the baseball field I'm remotely afraid of or scared of. I'm blocking 85-mile-an-hour slap shots. I'm getting hit and crushed by 6'2" defensemen. Right. So what is your thought process, I guess, for your boys going forward? And what advice would you give to other parents as far as focusing on one sport or, utilizing multiple?
Well, I think you just said it perfectly. Just when you were describing just all of the different attributes that you gain from playing hockey and playing other sports. It was the same way with me. I feel like I got tougher playing football. It gave me that edge, just from the way we trained and in the mental part of playing football. And then you go onto the basketball court, and it's an aggressive, fast-paced sport. Agility, changing directions. And then you put me on the baseball field, it was like, this was, it was almost like a cakewalk, if I'm being honest. From a mindset and a pace standpoint, I almost had to dial it down from a baseball standpoint. So in regards to my kids, I'm going to take the same approach. I'm okay with my kids maybe not being the best at baseball or football or whatever sport, that they're going to be involved in. I'm okay with that, because I'm looking at it as, the long game. In the long run, them playing as many sports and honing in on as many skills is going to it's going to play out in the end when you start getting to high school, when their bodies begin to develop. And I'm a firm believer that, you also want to give yourself every opportunity to get a college scholarship. You might love basketball, might be your favorite sport or your first love. But if you're not 6'5", 6'6", your chances are very, very small and diminished. So you just never know what sport is going to call you. For me, like, football was my number one sport. That was the sport where I put more time in than I did in baseball. But, obviously baseball was a sport that chose me. So, I want to give my kids as much opportunity as possible.
How was it last week? We were watching the games there on MLB Network, the East-West game, and there was just such a celebration. And, for me, I've always tried to do whatever I could to promote the game in the inner city, promote the game for minorities. That's the way I grew up, right? The way they called our team the United Nations, because we had so many different shades of people in our dugout. That's just the way it was. But I've always been a big proponent on that here locally, whether that was with the RBI group or just really focusing on promoting it there with some of our young Black athletes, and to be able to see kind of that celebration and to be able to see all these guys come together. I mean, it was great to watch from my perspective. I saw the video that you put out with, who was that? D. Gordon coming up to you, talking about Ejax, getting a little wild. I mean, what was it like to be a part of that?
Oh, it was beautiful. It was beautiful because, you obviously in Major League Baseball, it's a small percentage of Black players in the game. So what does that tell you? That majority of our careers, or all of our careers, we were spread out. We were never together like that in one setting, where we could actually, just connect and reminisce and just, just have a blast. And it was a unique experience. I was having a conversation with Prince Fielder after he won the home run derby there. I was on the on-deck circle during the game, and we kind of looked at each other, and sarcastically saying to each other, like, man, we needed this, just as like retired athletes, African American athletes, just a community of us coming back together it was something that I think we all needed. You know, baseball has been our lives, and we've given so much to it. And, you know, we want to continue to pass the baton to the next generation, and we want to see those numbers in the African-American community go up in the game of baseball. So, you know, hopefully, you know, there was some kids at that game or some kids that are watching MLB Network that saw us there, and hopefully it piqued their interest to take baseball a little bit serious.
Yeah, we got to keep that going. We got to, and it's more, you know, I always took that very seriously for myself because it can't just be the former Black players promoting this message. It's got to be everybody, right? It's got to be everybody. You know, you get that message from different people to be like, hey, it's a great sport, you know, and I think it gets lost in the sauce a little bit of, you know, the minutia of the game's too long or they're trying to speed up the game. Like we got to remember to be very inclusive when it comes to this sport and, you know, reach out to our local municipalities and being like, hey, how do we make the entry? How do we make the path to entry for baseball easier? Right.
For everybody.
For everybody. Right?
Portability, personality, you know, being able to connect with kids that, you know, that are different than the normal baseball kids. Like we have to do a better job at making, like you said, everybody come together and everybody feel comfortable. You know, we're Americans. We're in this country together. Like, you know, better or worse, you know, indifferent, like, you know, we all are share our differences, but we have to find a way to find that commonality and try to give everybody an opportunity to be a part of, you know, such a beautiful game. I mean, we're talking baseball, man. It's come on, man. Like, it's the best game, in my opinion, on earth. It really is.
Yeah, it's a game of failure, right? And that's what I was very lucky to be able to. I mean, just so much being back on the field. Like I even called my mom and dad. I was just like, there's just nothing like it to be around the competition, to be around, you know, affecting the youth, affecting kids on the team, and being there in South Carolina because we went to some schools, man. It was like 1945 all over again. Like, but it's the tradition of baseball, man.
Yeah.
There's just nothing like it. We see it. I mean, we see it at your foundation every year when we do the dinner, and we just see all the, you know, sitting down Carl Everett's crazy ass. You know what I mean? Like, I love Carl. I've known Carl for years, but like he just, no matter what, he talks so much smack and he's always busting my chops, but he loves the game of baseball, and we got to continue to promote that going forward. I mean, how about our Tampa Bay Rays, 22-9 over the last 31 going into the game? I mean, our guys right here, they've adjusted to playing outside at Steinbrenner Field so well. I mean, it's pretty wild to think that this team, they look really sketchy in the beginning, have really settled in pretty nice with this club. I mean, it's pretty crazy to think about if you were in this situation this year playing outside. I mean, what adjustments do you think you would have to make as a professional athlete, knowing that, hey, I'm an indoor guy, I'm a Tampa Bay Ray for, you know, I know you didn't play for that long, but I mean, that routine change, how important is that routine to a pro ball player?
I think, especially being here in Florida with the weather and the humidity, that I think that would affect me the most. You know what I mean? Making sure like I didn't tire myself out, because when you're in that dome, you know, it's controlled atmosphere. You're not dealing with the elements outside. Your body stays, I think, a little bit more fresh. I mean, yeah, you take the pounding of the turf, but being outdoors in the summer here, like it's brutal. You know what I mean? But I think, I don't know, man. Yeah, it's been impressive. It almost looks like they built the team to specifically play in these and to be outside, and you know, they're young, they're athletic, which obviously helps. And you know, most of the guys are young. You know, you think about it. They didn't play a ton of games in that dome, other than, you know, the Lau brothers, the Taylor Walls. I mean, for the most part, the Mangums and the Chandler Simpsons. I'm drawing a blank. Meisner, yeah. Those guys didn't play in the Trop. They've played outdoors in the minor league. So, you know, they've come in and done a great job. I mean, right now the team is, you know, putting up runs. They're swinging the bat really nicely. It's almost reminiscent of 2023. You know, anytime the Rays find a way to, you know, get the bats going offensively and they're scoring runs like that, they're pretty much unbeatable, because you know they're going to pitch and play defense.
What I wanted to get your opinion on this, because I look at the way that the game is played, and I'm biased because it's, you know, it's in my blood, but people always think that baseball is going to be more entertaining if there's more home runs. And I don't necessarily think that's the case, because I think if you have guys that are just talking about home runs, like, or just swinging for home runs and then they're striking out the other 3 times, like, that's not entertaining to me. Doesn't mean that I don't like, pitchers duels, because I think at times it's fun to see guys throwing hard. But you look at Chandler Simpson and what kind of excitement he brought to the game. Does the MLB need to look, and it's hard, man, because you're not going to change the entire perspective, but you look at college baseball and how exciting that is at times, with bunting and hitting and running and guys stealing, and there's just a lot of energy. What does baseball have to do, I guess, on that aspect of it, of focusing on, like, hey, it's not just about the long ball? Because I feel like people are stuck in that late 90s McGuire, Sosa, Bonds as the only way that the game can be entertaining. I think it goes deeper than that.
But back then in the 90s, even though Bonds, McGuire, Sosa, those guys got the glory for hitting the home runs, but there were still guys in the game, in the league, that knew how to run the bases.
Right.
They knew how to lay the bunt down. They knew how to get the runners over. Home run hitters, they're always going to get the glory and the love, and they're always going to get paid the most. Right. But I think what happens, or what we get to find a problem is when everybody is trying to do that. Then it becomes monotonous. It becomes boring. It's like you're watching robots go up there because everybody looks alike. You can't even tell who is who. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I think the game's in a better place when you have a mixture of your 3 through 6 hitters that are doing that, but 1 through 1, 2, and 7 through 9, those got to be guys that are athletic, guys that can go first to third, guys that can score on a double from first base, guys who can drop a bunt down, put the ball in play. Like, how many strikeouts do we see with a runner on third base with less than 2 outs? I'm tired of watching it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because everybody's going up there trying to hit the ball a mile. No, just put the ball in play. You guys are big leaguers. Let's do a better job at the fundamentals part of the game. So I'm okay with the home runs, but I think it needs to, we need to have a balance. It has to be more balanced. You know what I mean? The guys that are like Chandler Simpson, you know what I mean? Like, there needs to be a place for them in the game. There used to be he was me.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know what I mean? And it's sad. Like, if I was playing today, I feel like I probably wouldn't last 2 or 3 years in the league because of the metrics and all the things that, how they're grading players now. But you ask every player that I played with, every team that I played for, I brought value to the game because of my speed and the pressure that I put on opposing teams, the same way that Chandler Simpson does.
How frustrating is that as a former player when you hear people try to use analytics as a way to describe what a good ball player is? And the reason why I ask you that is I remember being in the press box a couple times with our good buddy Orestes Estrada, and we'd be having a conversation with somebody and he would just look at me and he'd be like, JJ, we're not going to win this argument, buddy, because you have arguments with people, or you have these discussions with people and they've never touched a baseball, and they go, well, look, I mean, this guy hits, left-handed pitchers on Friday nights after 7:00. He's 3 for 5. So that means he's a great hitter. And it's just like, there's so much that goes into the game that you can't compute with numbers. A guy's heartbeat. That's what Jeter says. What number is a heartbeat? I look at it like you just said. What about a guy that grounds out to second base with a runner on third base with less than 2 outs and scores that run? It's just an RBI ground out in the book. But that type of selflessness and that type of mindset, what that kind of impacts your team, and people go down the dugout, they're like, bro, appreciate that, man. Appreciate you giving yourself up. How annoying is that as a former big leaguer to hear when people try to compute what a good ball player is and what a good team is based solely on some analytic and something that you really have to look up what this acronym means?
I get analytics. I get it. I really do. And, I guess to an elementary understanding of it is, you try to put a number, or you try to, make understanding of how good a player is. And you try to make a metric or a measuring stick to see, is this guy on this side of it, or is this guy on this side of it? By how hard he hits the ball, by how many times he swings and misses, by how many times, whatever, his launch angle. You know what I mean? Like, you try to take those things and measure what a player is. More times than not, they're probably going to be right. You know what I mean? With the analytics. But we all know, not only just in baseball, but in life in general, there's outliers, right? There's certain things where you can look at and you're like, man, like I just can't put my finger on that. Or, man, like 2 + 2 just doesn't equal 4 in this situation.
Right.
No matter, I'm looking at it. This guy is, 5'5", Altuve. He's not big. He's not strong. But how does he, there's no way he's going to be a big leaguer. There's no way. And this dude now all of a sudden is a Hall of Famer. You know what I'm saying? So it's like there's certain things that you just can't measure. There's certain things that you just can't explain, or some things you just can't understand.
Right.
You know what I mean? But as guys that have played the game, you can look at a guy and be like, yeah, that dude's a baller. Like, yeah. I know he didn't hit the ball the hardest. I know he's not the fastest runner, but it's something about his instincts. It's something about the way he's able to, flush a tough stretch or a tough game, and he's ready to go. It's something about how he is in the clubhouse, in the locker room. That goes a long way. Those are things, like you said, that you cannot, put a number or a figure to. Real baseball people that have been around the game and played the game, they have an eye for that. They have a knack for that.
Baseball's the best because you have a guy that's 5'6" or a guy that's 6'6", and you're playing the same sport, which is kind of crazy. They're all built in different shapes and sizes. I've seen some of the most unathletic people in the world be fantastic pitchers. Yep. I've seen guys that are rail thin. You're like, this dude isn't even 140 pounds soaking wet and be a great pitcher. Like, it's amazing. Who's that one player? And don't give me a Mauer, don't give me a Harper, a guy like that. Give me one guy that you played with in your career that from the outside looking in, you're like, I don't know what he brought to the table. Maybe a guy that didn't win an all-star game, and it doesn't have to be a great player either, but who was that one guy that really made more of an impact on your club than what shows on the back of his baseball card?
My mind goes to like all the glue piece guys that I played with. I'm not even forget the superstars. The superstars, don't get me wrong, they're great and they get all the glory, but it's the glue guys that never get the glory. And I've been on great teams where the front office thought, all right, yeah, we can, since we got these Mauer Morneaus or the Buster Posies or the Bryce Harpers, we can subtract a guy from the bullpen. We can subtract, this utility second baseman, and we'll be fine. And then that next year we sucked.
Yep.
And they're wondering why. They can't figure it out. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I'm thinking of like the Nick Puntos of the world.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about like Danny Espinosa. I'm thinking about shucks, I'm gonna throw myself in there. Like, I was a glue guy. I was not a superstar player. So like, yeah, I mean, there's so many instances of or like I'm thinking of, or like late inning reliever guys that were not our setup guys or our closers, but they were like our bridge gap guys that were very important to us getting to those guys. That I remember in Minnesota in 2010, we were really good. We didn't sign 2 or 3 guys, Jesse Crane, Matt Guerrier. We didn't sign those guys back.
Right.
And then all of a sudden the next year we were last place. And we had the same core superstars. We didn't get rid of Joe Nathan. We didn't get rid of Mauer Morneau. I was on we had our core team, but we didn't sign our glue pieces. And it was a massive turnaround. Nick Punto wasn't there. Like, these are guys these are winning ball players. These are guys that every team, when you look at like the Ben Zobrises of the world, these are guys that, that are very important to ball clubs.
Before I let you go, I want to ask you 2 quick ones. I just saw the video that you put out about Carlos Gomez being brought in and how that kind of changed your mindset, because one of the things that I've noticed, and I noticed it from the high school level, and I'm trying to get these kids ready, and a lot of it's up here. A lot of it's up here as far as like having that dog in you, not shying away from obstacles and confrontations. And like, sometimes you got to be able to persevere. Take us through that mindset of like, hey, you could bring guys in, because it happened to me. I mean, I was 11 or 12 years old, brought in a new guy, and all of a sudden I was sharing reps at second base. And I was like, I've been an all-star for the last 4 years. And I remember going, I don't want to share ground balls with anybody. I gotta take my game to the next level. And then halfway through the season, they moved them to first base. And the next 6 years, I was the lone guy at second. What is that mindset? What is that mindset? And do you see that being a problem with some young ball players now, where they shy away from any type of resistance whatsoever if it's not easy?
Yeah, they want to be comfortable.
Right.
I think even as all of us as human beings, like we would rather take the path of least resistance.
Right.
Right. What I found in my, experience in life is, with competition and adversity, one or two things are going to happen. And I said it in my Instagram video. Either you're going to fold your tent and take a back seat, or you're going to do something about it. And something within you, that competitive nature within you that you cannot compute on paper. Carlos Gomez is on paper supposed to be twice as good as me.
Right.
Better arm than me. Hits for more power. Better, can argue better athlete than me. You know what I'm saying? But when you put me and it's not a knock against him. I play with him Minnesota and Tampa Bay. One of my favorite teammates. He's my guy. And he's the guy that pushed me to another level. That situation took me from a boy to a man.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I had to look myself in the mirror and say, not up in here. Like, where I come from, dog, like, you're not finna come in here and take what's mine.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I look back over the course of my career and my life, like every time I had adversity, every time I had a setback, it sucked going through it, but it was what I needed. And I came back stronger, and I came back, even more powerful than what I was prior to that situation. And so if you're a young player, a young ball player, young athlete, not saying you should go looking for adversity, but when it comes, you should look it right in its face and say, I'm going to show whoever is doubting me. You should take on that challenge, and you should go out there and fight for what you believe. It should be yours.
I'm with you, because I feel like difficult conversations, difficult moments in your life, difficult decisions that you have to make. And on the other side of that, usually if you do it the right way and you face it head on, you don't shy away from it, man, you get there's a lot of great things that come from it, right? You whether it's a girl that you're afraid to ask out, whether it's a job interview you're nervous about going on, or whether it's something like that where you have the opportunity to, like, all right, fold up my tent, or really meet this thing head on and say, hey, I'm going to give it everything I have, and then whatever happens. And I think this kind of parlays into my final question. I just wanted to give you the floor. I like to do this every couple of times we get together to talk about the foundation. It means the world to me to be a small part of it. And I know for you, like just seeing the impact that you have on our community and the single moms, just go ahead, just talk about the foundation a little bit, the latest, what the future holds, because it's made such a profound impact on the Tampa Bay area.
Yeah, my foundation right now, currently, it has my sole undivided attention. It's my purpose right now. It's near and dear to my heart because it's my God work. It's geared towards single mothers. I grew up in a single mother household. Just watching, the way my mom, went about, raising me and my brother. There's no way I would, be where I'm at if it were not for all of her sacrifices and all of her love and just all the things that she did for me. So it has grew a passion within me to just want to give back to those types of families that are in those situations. I think it's crucial. Unfortunately, there are a lot of broken homes, in this world, and which unfortunately, it means that there's broken kids, there's broken emotions that are that these families are faced with. And so for me, like, I love going in and just trying to mentor these kids and just try to just make an impact in these mothers' lives. And we do that with trying to provide for them brand new transportation. We know in Tampa, like, the bus system is not that great. Public transportation is not that great.
Right.
So yeah, this is just where my heart is. And we're small, but I guarantee you, just like I had an 11-year major league career, I guarantee you that my foundation is going to be great. I promise you that.
No doubt about it. DenardSpanFoundation.org got all the information on there. Make sure, and every time that a big announcement of a big event's coming up, I share it all over my socials. So we'll definitely hear it from @JRecher, and of course This Is D-Span, one of my favorite people. If I could change one thing about this whole thing, I'd say he's in the hall of pretty great rather than the hall of pretty good. But it is what it is. He's an awesome guy, father, husband, and a really good friend. So, Denard, I love you. Give my love to the family, and we'll talk to you again soon, man. Thanks.
Yes, sir, man. Appreciate you. Good work, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. The one and only Denard Span. He is the best. A lot of people ask when you work with professional athletes and what kind of people they are. Like, he's the man. Like, he's become one of my best friends, which is just awesome. Him and Annie and just the cause, like, it's something I'm so privileged to be able to be a part of. All right. I want to touch on a couple things before I go. One, and I spoke about this with Evan Closky before, and I just want to reiterate, hearing what Joy Taylor had to say about Caitlin Clark, and the only reason why we know about her is because of Reese, Angel Reese, couldn't be more wrong. And that was on the Joe Budden podcast. And then Acho coming up with this big formula, trying to drag down a guy like Kevin Durant. It's kind of crazy because I've never been a big Kevin Durant guy, but through this whole process, when people bash the guy, he's one of the greatest players of all time. He's one of the greatest shooters of all time. Maybe I don't like the way he goes about some of his business. Okay. But it doesn't mean you sit there and take shots at the guy. It doesn't make you any better. What he was able to do, what he's been able to do in his career, it's just incredible, man. The guy is so freaking talented, and he's done really well the last couple of years. And I'm very interested to see what he's going to do there in Houston. You give all the power to these guys in the league. That's what do you think is going to happen? I just don't like the hot take artists. We got Skip Bayless coming on, and he's talking shit about Tyrese Halliburton. Oh, he's faking his injury, and then he pops his Achilles. Now what, Skip? Now what? You're talking about this guy complaining about his calf injury like it wasn't real, and then the calf injury leads to him popping his Achilles that we've seen happen from multiple people. I don't understand why we give people a platform like that. I don't give a shit about what Skip Bayless has to say about anything. Anything. I really don't care. I don't care what Emmanuel Acho has to say. None of those guys. I'm never going to listen to those guys and be like, oh, that's a good point. Sorry, I really don't care. Because I don't believe anything that they're saying. I don't. You're saying it to shock people. You're not saying it with any type of validity whatsoever. You're not saying things because you truly believe it. You're saying it because if you don't make something pop to the low-hanging fruit, then you're not going to have a job. So you got to talk shit for no reason. I'm sorry, I'm never going to be like that. And if that means that my ceiling is lower than other people, fine. I was not put on this earth to talk shit and be confrontational to people. And I'm sorry. I'm here to big people up, push things forward in a positive way. You want to be a part of that, then fine. If you don't like that, then hey, then I'm not your guy. Whatever. It is what it is. But I'm going to rock with guys like Denard Span. I'm going to rock with guys like Titus O'Neil. I'm going to rock with guys like Ryan Callahan. I'm not going to rock with the Achos and the freaking Skip Baylesses and Joy Taylors of the world. No, thank you. Right? Don't really care. And finally, the trade in the NBA that reminds us of why things need to be the way they are, or why we should be aware of the way things are. The Boston Celtics going into this postseason, I swear, I didn't think anybody had a chance of beating them. Maybe Oklahoma City, but they were just rolling and firing on all cylinders. They played the game the right way. They were deep. God, it was unbelievable. Unbelievable. Jason Tatum goes down, and then obviously they blow the first two games to the Knicks, and then everything changes, right? So now they trade Drew Holiday for Anthony Simons, and I feel so bad for our guy Kenny Morales from New Channel 8. He's a big Magic fan. Not Simons was the guy that he wanted them to get. And Holiday gets traded to the Blazers, who, remember, Drew Holiday was originally on the Blazers after the trade with the Bucks. Drew Holiday went from the Bucks to Portland, and then Portland flipped them to Boston in a deal that helped them win a championship. But going into this postseason, everybody was talking about, can this team win 2? Can they win 3? Now, an injury to Jason Tatum, you start wondering, what does this Boston team look like going forward? Because now Drew Holiday, and I think this was one of the big keys to how good they were, because you could defend with him and with Derek White and with Jaylen Brown and with Jason Tatum. Like, you just had so many different guys you could throw at guards or wing players. Now that team gets weaker. Now Al Horford's probably not coming back. What happens to Kristaps Porzingis? Now the team's not the same. So the reason why I bring this up is because we've been so fortunate with the Tampa Bay Lightning and fortunate with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't know if I'd necessarily put the Rays in it, because they're an enigma. They're different than pretty much everybody else. But when you have a good team, first off, cherish it as a fan. But that's why I always look at GMs and just say, you got to go for it. Go for it, man. If you're Julian right now, if you have an opportunity to trade for Connor McDavid when you still have a lot of these other guys that you wouldn't trade in their prime, like, go for it. And Julian has really said that. I owe it to these guys to give them as many cracks at the apple as humanly possible. I love that. I love that. So cherish the good teams that you cheer for, because, listen, where's Boston's window now? Where's Boston's window? Because you look at not just them, look at the other teams in the East. Will Philly bounce back? Probably. The Knicks will be back. The Pacers will be back. What happens with the Heat? Right? You look at some of these other teams throughout the league. The Magic aren't going anywhere. So if you're Boston and you're a Boston fan, where it was like you're clear-cut the best team in the East, even though you weren't the number one seed, Cleveland, right? Now what? Now you lose one of those guys. And Drew Holiday, to me, one of my favorite players in the entire game because of what he does offensively and defensively. He was a huge part of the last two teams that won the gold. So just, be cognizant of things like that. Want to tell you about my guys over at Honest Hammer. Once again, what I'm going to do here is I am going to bring up the website. I'm going to share it with you guys too. Check this out. Go to thehonesthammer.com. And here's the website. Look how clean this bad boy is. Services, portfolio, estimates, about a schedule, project, contact. That right here, this is Hammer's number. Give him a shout. Tell him that you heard it right here. You're going to get a discount if you tell him that you heard it right here on the Recher podcast. Services, portfolio, about us. Why hire them? Everything is on there. Licensed and insured. Florida General Contractor. CGC 153-1166. No project too big or too small. They do a little bit of everything. You need some kind of remodel, whether it's commercial, whether it's residential, even if you just want to have a conversation. Look at some of these before and after pictures. Beautiful. Love it, man. Love it. Get in touch. Again, 813-244-0956. thehonesthammer@gmail.com. All the information. Go check them out. Even if you're thinking about doing a project at your house, give them a shout. Tell them that you heard it right here on the Recher podcast. Hey, Hammer, Jay was talking about you the other day. I'm thinking about doing this. I'm thinking about remodeling my kitchen, remodeling my bathroom. What can I do? He'll be able to give you all the information, be able to help you out. I trust this guy. He's been a loyal viewer since back in the WDAE days and a big sports fan and just a really solid, down to earth. When you do things like this, we hear so many horror stories when it comes to contractors, right? General contractors that do half the job and then leave. Like, you got to really trust these people. You really have to trust these people. Hammer is my guy, and he should be your guy too. Again, Honest Hammer Custom Builders, LLC, 813-244-0956. We got a great couple of shows coming out for the rest of the week. I know Chris Adams-Wall from the Rays is going to join us. Adam Slavon is going to join us from Pewter Report. We've got Eddie Encinas probably going to be joining us on the program. Still working on Xavier Scruggs. We've got a lot of great things going on here on the program. We'll be with you all week long. How about our guy, Jeff Taylor? Best content in Tampa. Thanks, Jay. Now let's get the damn t-shirt design done. Jeff, I'm still working on it, buddy. I got to ask my sisters. They're the creative one. Once we get that done, I promise we are going to be firing. I need a good cliche. I need a good like Tampa Bay United, but that was a former soccer club. I don't want to do something, but something of that ilk. If you have ideas, certainly hit me up. And just like Jeff, if you can contribute via the super chat, $1, $2, $5, $10, $20, please, every little bit helps. And if you want to keep this thing going, that is certainly one way to do it. All right, a big thank you to everybody that joined us on the program today, including Denard Span, including George Richards, and Evan Closky. Make sure you follow them all on social media. All of our videos are up on my YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe. Follow me on all social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram. I am everywhere. This has been fun. I got to go on the field now. Who the heck schedules practices on at 3:30 in the boiling sun? This guy. I'm back at it. I'm a crazy son of a gun, but I love you all, and I appreciate all of the support. We'll see you tomorrow at noon right here on the Recher podcast.